In the mid-1970s, I worked as a production assistant on the San Francisco-based film crew that produced this show.
I like to think that I really don't do interviews, but rather engage someone in a conversation where they do most of the talking. Now, the more comfortable you make a guest, the more they seem to open up. And my aim is to find out something about them, their backgrounds, experiences, their ideas, their goals, and lifestyles. And when a guest realizes you're interested in them, and that they won't feel intimidated by you, then and only then will the interview begin. And you get the damnedest stories.
My mother was a wonderful person. She'd give you a dime to go to bed without your supper, steal it during the night, and then make you do without your breakfast for losing your money. You know, like really. She used to give us, for castor oil, she'd give us kids a nickel every time we'd take castor oil, and we'd save it up for, we'd put it in a little red bank, see? A little blue bank, rather. And then when it was up to a quarter, we'd put it in a big red bank, you know. See, I was about 8 years old before I realized that the red bank was a gas meter. You know. This is true. These are true. We'd have company come over, and my mother'd say, "Now look, no matter what you serve to you, there's not enough to go around. So you just say you don't want any." So she only got one chicken, and they're coming over here today, and we've got to make a good impression with them, you know. So she said, "We don't want any." So they bring her to it. Don't want any. Boy, you're dying, you know. So when the desserts come, she says, that. You didn't eat your chicken, so you don't get no dessert, you know.
It's nice sometimes to take a guest down memory lane. Listeners, Red remembers working with Frank Sinatra long ago.
The first sketch that Frank Sinatra ever did with me was in Buffalo, New York, in the lobby. And he played the brother, and I was the husband and the wife, and we got to get rid of your brother-in-law, and he played the brother-in-law. He said, I'm going to go outside and shave. He said, you always shave on the outside? He said, certainly. You think I'm furline? You know, those kind of jokes, you know. And he says, now look, he's got to get out of here. He says, you're going to wear your blue suit tonight? Yeah, I'm going to wear my blue suit. Fine, I'll wear the brown one. You know, or he comes in and says, what are you doing with my raincoat on? I didn't want to get your suit wet, you know. real funny things. So it says, no, we got to get rid of him. So tonight we'll get in an argument. I'll say the soup's hot, you say it's cold. Whoever he sides in with, the other one tells him to leave. So it says, hi, Frank. He says, hi. Says, soup's kind of hot. She says, I think it's cold. He says, I say it's hot. He says, it's cold. I said, wait, we'll leave it up to Frank. What do you think of the soup? He says, hot or cold? I'm staying another 6 months.
I have to admit, in thinking back, I was rather nervous about meeting and talking to Red Skelton, almost a legendary figure in comedy. He seemed so composed, but you never know.
Well, Mr. Skelton, a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And I certainly hope that the next time around you please come by.
This is one of the first interviews I've ever done.
I heard that, and I'm pleased.
I'm actually frightened to death of it.
In an interview, you work off an exchange of ideas and experiences. After all, we have many things in common with our guests. Often, I'll use a personal situation of mine to prompt a response from them in the same category. Now, I've done some comedy work for a few years with another fellow in radio, and I wanted to know how Tom and Dick Smothers find their comedy approach.
Well, it basically actually, in my point of view, it started an accident. We went to the Kerosene Club down there to audition a song for a freshman registration dance at San Jose, and we in front, we didn't remember you had to talk between songs. You know, you sing a song, and then you had to say something.
Yeah.
And so Tommy said a few things, and he got some laughs. And at that point, we were a trio. So it was just awkward for the other two to join in, so we were silent. So the comedy part of Tommy being a comedian started then. Now, the only logical thing for me to do was to comment or disagree. So,
okay.
And so it came.
So it wasn't premeditated, just developed.
It was a simple question, but people are interested in how they put it together. In knowing your guests and researching them properly, you automatically know where to go with your questioning. Knowing the background of Tommy as the clown, I asked if he's changing that image now.
I'm in a transition right now. It's very difficult from being the dummy half and when the CBS thing happened. Mm-hmm. I took on another character, and I'm kind of schizoid now. Between I do a stand-up bit 15 minutes, 10 minutes before Dickie and I do our act, so I go out first, and I have a different attitude. When Dickie and I start working, it's kind of in between, and I'm in transition. Both of us are. And I figure in the next within a year or so, I think whatever we're going will be resolved.
Now, there are some situations where everything just seems to click, and that's because you and your guest find that you click. And how marvelous it is to hear that rapport exist. Joel Grey and I started an interview in a rather unusual manner.
Okay, we're back now, and we've switched roles.
Yes, and your seat
Role reversal.
is very hot.
That is the hot seat here at the station. You are now carrying the weight of NBC on your shoulders.
Does that have to do with the responsibility involved in this position?
You have the
power. Or is it something personal you want to tell me?
And even by switching the roles, we still find out about him, his comedy approach, his wit, action and reaction. That's what it's all about. With that kind of chemistry, you just talk.
I don't know. I guess maybe I've always been very much into achievement. You know, that's kind of what I find exciting in life. And when you get down there, and I'm very, very lazy, too. So that when I really relax, I let go. I took 8 weeks this summer, 9 weeks off, totally.
9 weeks?
Yeah, lived in a kind of very primitive environment in Spain, and it was very, very refreshing and good, and I couldn't have cared less about work.
Yeah.
So it's not that I don't have the ability to really flop out, but something about islands, for me, there's a decadence that I find, and very often, not the people who are born there, but the people who go there to live, right?
Yeah.
Are very often really heavy dropouts.
In an interview situation, a good memory comes in handy. And another thought, people enjoy hearing about themselves. You work these two theories together and watch how Phyllis Diller reacts. And it looks like an oyster bed of beautiful women. And the pearl is Phyllis Diller. Really? And
Mike,
the pearl
that is the most beautiful introduction I have ever had.
That was about 1969, and you were rehearsing a special.
Yes.
And it was so funny because you had on a sweatsuit, and like a white sweatsuit and a hood. And
rehearsal clothes.
Yeah, rehearsal clothes. And I was just in awe. I'm looking around. I couldn't believe
Well,
it.
you know, I was so upset because the director was so rude to Don. He didn't know that he was a
That's
personal
right.
friend of mine, and I was just terribly upset for about a week because, you know, it's very tight out there. Everybody's very nervous and uptight, and they owe a lot of money. And so they, like, made Don and you, I guess, were talking to somebody, and he said, quiet, and they carried on, and they threw everybody out, and there was nothing I could do because the Pearl couldn't get away from the producer.
It is nice, admittedly, to have a rapport with your guests. You're trying to keep the interview relaxed and open, but it must be able to hold your interest. When you have a guest like Phyllis Diller, it's important to find other facets of her life besides comedy. I got in a conversation with somebody one time about an argument over if a person has all this. Like, I know one person who is extremely talented, but has absolutely no desire to exploit it. And we got in a thing, and I said, in a way, I think that's being morally irresponsible.
Well, there's a whole chapter in the Bible about it, burying your talents.
Mhm.
It's treated as a sin of omission.
Yeah, and I think it should be shared.
Well, if God has given you these talents, or wherever they came from, I think it is really your duty to display something. Well, I've left my children with only one precept, and that is children want to know what you expect of them. And I've simply asked them to push out the boundaries of thought.
Words to live by. Rich Little is perhaps the best impersonator and impressionist in the business, and it is a peculiar talent, and one that allows you, the interview, to ask a million questions dealing with all of his characters. But I chose to stray and ask about other things.
I find reviewers strange people because they sit there sort of judging instead of enjoying, you know. Usually they're the most sour people, and they don't usually represent the average public. This is what I find. Now, there's a lot of exceptions, but I find that genuinely.
And everybody has at least one person they think they look like, or worse, that they feel they sound like. Well, you can imagine the problems Rich has when meeting the public.
Oh, yeah, the people stopped me on the street to do John Wayne. One day in Chicago, a man said, Rich Little, my goodness, my favorite. Hey, look at my John Wayne. Tell me what's wrong with my John Wayne. I do John Wayne's walk. John Wayne's walk. Out in the street, and the guy walked right into a cab, and he nearly got killed, you know? Honking of horns.
How do you feel about that? Do you like it?
Well, yeah, usually the guys that come up to you and do it for you are usually the worst, you know.
Right.
Let me do John Wayne for you. My wife says it's better than yours. Okay. Now, you tell me now. You be honest. Well, listen tight, kid. What do you think, you know?
That's good.
Well, not bad, you know. You don't like to discourage anybody.
It's fun meeting entertainers. They're generally good-hearted people. They're open and enthusiastic. They're always full of humor, and they have that unique ability to laugh. When you interview someone, you just can't batter them with questions. You've got to establish a relationship quickly to get information. And what a pleasure it was to relate with Olivia Newton-John. In your travels, Olivia, have you managed to find a hotel room with a waterbed?
No, I've been looking forward to that too.
You've never slept on a waterbed?
No, but all the sort of hotels with water beds have got sort of sleazy signs outside.
Oh, you kidding? No. They're in fine, respectable hotels.
Really?
Now.
Oh, well, I hope it happens on one of the trips.
Oh.
I love the sea, so
You'll
it'll be
enjoy it.
good.
You mentioned you'll be down the Circle Star, and then south of that in San Jose, there's a place called the Bedroom, and capital B. And we cordially invite people to go down to the Bedroom. And sometimes they'll call the information operator and say, where's the Bedroom in San Jose? And they get all kinds of remarks from Ma Bill.
Oh, that's lovely.
But it is the world's largest waterbed showroom. And I forget how many years ago, the waterbed industry started, and like anything, it goes through that fad era where people kept putting the sexual connotations, to the whole thing. And then finally it became a lucrative and profitable industry. And on the serious side of it, sleeping is incredibly comfortable. It's fantastic.
It's supposed to be sort of the best rest you can get, isn't it?
Absolutely. So take it from Michael Cleary, who sleeps on a waterbed, and Olivia Newton-John, who would like to someday when she finds the right hotel. Or you can put one somewhere, or maybe we could send you down to the Bedroom. They have over 60 of them on display.
Or maybe
you
I
can
could just stay in the showroom for the night.
Yeah. Stay there for the weekend.
Yeah,
they'd love it. They'd love it. They put food in. They lock the doors 10 o'clock. Your performance isn't until later than that. They'll have a guard down there. He'll let you in for the night. You can bounce around. They've got galleries, with pictures and paintings and things, and we're well over the 60 seconds. So bye, folks. Olivia Newton-John is one of the young and emerging big stars of our day, and she relies on good material to keep her going. One of her records was tops in 1974, and I asked her where she found this material.
Well, it was obviously amongst a pile of demos, and my producer found it, and he fell in love with it. It was just the writer, Peter Allen, playing piano and singing it. And the first time I heard it, I was nearly in tears, and when I recorded it, it was really a very emotional song anyway, and by the time I only did it about twice, because I got so keyed up, once you had that feeling, you couldn't do it more than a few times.
Oh, yeah.
And I just love it as a song. Maybe I hang around here a little more than I should. We both know I got somewhere else to go. But I got something to tell you that I never thought I would. But I believe you really ought to know.
I Love You, I Honestly Do, one of the big hits from 1974. One of the major points in putting together a successful interview is a don't rule. Don't compete with the guest. Now, there's no way I can be funnier than Bill Cosby. If I was, he'd be interviewing me. As it was, I was the interviewer. And I wanted to know, how do you put a comedy bit together? Do you feel it out?
Oh, no. I have an idea of what I'm going to do, because I take great pride in the fact that I turn over at least 3/4 of my material, coming into the Circle Star. So what I do is, for instance, comedy, you have to be liked first. The people have to like you. If they don't like you, then you're in trouble when you step out there. the first to be liked. Secondly, the second best position to be in is if you walk out and they don't know who you are. You see. Well, I'm past that. They know who I am now. If they don't like me, then I'm in big trouble in River City.
There's always the frustration in talking with your guest that your questions will be trivial or meaningless and boring. And you've got that temptation to want to construct difficult, probing questions to feel that you're doing your job well. Well, that's hogwash. It's the questions that are prompted by your interest in an individual that work. Here's the simplest question in the business. Bill Cosby, how did you get started?
There's a place called Pep's Show Bar in Philadelphia on Broad Street between Lombard and South. At the time, I'm 37 years old. At the time, I was 23 years old, and I had decided that I wanted to be a comedian. So I went to Pep's and watched Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross. They were singing, you know, when they were putting the words for them. And I don't remember exactly, but John didn't know me from any other black dude standing around with his hat on sideways and a toothpick in his mouth. And I decided to tell John that I wanted to be a comedian. And John said, well, you know, man, if you want to be a comedian, you have to get out there and try it. So I said, well, I don't know. I don't even know how the man started talking to me. You know, that's in thinking about it later. He put me on the stage. At Pep's, yeah. You know, ladies and gentlemen, here's a young man from your own hometown. He wants to be funny. You know. And he said, here he is. He says, Bill Cosby. And I went out, and I swear this is a true story, man. I did something about picking your nose in public. That was one of my heavy things at that time. Then I also had a thing about a guy with the St. Vitus dance rolling his own cigarette. This was my material at that time. And it was heavy, and I had it tight, because it was popular at parties, man. People laughed at that stuff at parties, you know. So I figured, why not, you know, at the bar. And the people laughed, and I came off, and John said, yeah. He says, you got something there. Annie, who is a close friend today, because I see her back and forth, and she remembers that time. You know, Annie looked at me, and she just shook her head. No, you know, she said, hey, she said, you're funny, but the nose-picking thing, please, don't. You know, and it was funny. But John Hendricks, you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Because when you get in the position that I'm in, man, you get about 1,000 letters a month, you know, from people who are stuck. You know, like a dude will call, or he'll send a letter from someplace in Minnesota and say, I got a band and we are great, and Mr. Cosby, if you could just give us a break. Well, at one time I was, you know, like that, and walked in, man, and all of a sudden, in the middle of Pep's, you know, show bar, John Hendricks says, ladies and gentlemen, here's the dude who wants to be funny. Let me have your attention a second. Let's check him on out. And it was nice what he did. You know, it wasn't a put down. Of course, I can't do that at the Hilton or in San Carlos. I have done it. What is that? The little kid? Were you there that time? I had the little kid, and he came up, and it was some little kid wanted to do a routine. Little black kid, man, and his mother dressed him to kill. I know she spent all of the money, man. How old is he?
12.
And he spent all of the money
Was
making
this
him
here
look
at
good.
Circle Star?
At the Circle Star, and he came up, man, and he did about 3 minutes, and the people just loved him. But then I couldn't get rid of him. You know, the kid, every place I went, the kid kept showing up. You know, I said, look, it's time for you to go on your own now. You're old enough. You're 13. Get out. Go on the road, but stop following me around, you know.
How did you get started? Yeah, it's an easy question. But the answer was something you didn't know. It was informative, and it was entertaining. And that's the purpose of Backstage, to provide television stations and audiences with 26 informative and entertaining shows. Oh, with thanks to people like Bill Cosby, Olivia Newton-John, Rich Little, Phyllis Diller, Joel Gray, the Smothers Brothers, and Red Skelton, and thousands like them who just love to talk.